Hey everybody, it's Ian. I'm the owner of Timber Pointe Home Inspection, and I have a very special assignment today. We're going to be looking at 3 different windows from 3 different manufacturers, and I'm going to be doing a assessment of the 3 windows in terms of the build quality and the assembly, also the hardware and the different components that make up the window. Normally when I'm doing a window inspection, I've done, looked at thousands and thousands of windows in my lifetime. We generally just get to see the inside and the outside of the window. We don't get to see what's going on the actual inside, what's inside the wall. We don't get to really look at all of the stripping and all the different parts that make up the window. Normally, if you're out buying windows, you just see 3 different windows in a frame. So it's really hard to compare. Because you're looking at the same window manufacturer. So today we got 3 different manufacturers. We're going to be able to have a look at all 3 of them and compare them and see what I like and what I don't like. Okay, so we're going to get started. We're going to go ahead with number 2. It's right in front of me. So when I'm looking at the window, I'm going to be looking at the frame itself, the sash, the panes of glass, the hardware, the locking mechanism, the weather stripping around the window. So we're going to do a full assessment here. We're not skipping anything today. We're going to go right into this. So getting started, I'm just going to have a look at the sash. So it appears we got a triple pane window. We can take our flashlight, shine it on there. We got 3 panes of glass. So it looks like it's a fairly thick panes of glass in between, or the distance, the separation between the panes looks fairly solid. Looking at the frame itself, looking at the welds, you can see that they're welding there. It's not very seamless. Also, it's quite glossy. So any scratches or imperfections over the years that get, if the window gets hit with a hailstone or something like that, or someone throws something at the window and it hits the frame around the sash, you're going to probably see that as light reflects off of it. So it just becomes a little bit more of an aesthetic thing over time. Looking at the locking mechanism, which is very important with a casement window. If I didn't mention that, we're looking at a casement window today. So what that implies is it's a window that has a crank. Some people just call them crank windows. So we're going to open and close it a few times, and I'm just feeling how smooth or rough that's going as it's opening, which feels pretty solid. This hardware is fairly generic hardware you find on most windows out there. You don't really, there's nothing about it that feels bulky or heavy duty, or, over time I could see some of this hardware becoming fairly worn and starting to, break down. I get into a lot of houses where the windows are only 10, 15 years old, and you can feel the cranks. Some of them have already snapped off. The locks have already snapped off. So this window, I would say, is kind of in the middle range for that kind of, what we're looking at with the hardware. So we'll give it a close and then see how it locks. Make sure I don't get my fingers in there. And close it so you can feel as but you can see as I'm closing the window, a little bit of sticking, which might mean that in the factory when it was put together, it might not exactly be square. So it's still closing properly, but it just feels a little bit, for a window that's hasn't even been installed in a house yet. It feels like that might possibly get worse over time. I know that these types of windows, when I'm looking at them in different houses, the older the window gets, the more that it's been open and closed over time. Sometimes, look, that just came right off. That just hasn't been fastened down. It really is almost impossible to close. It'll only close maybe half or 3/4 of the way. So that's one thing. When you're looking at windows in a shop or a showroom, when you're going out shopping for these types of things, make sure you test all this kind of stuff, because you want to see how it feels. If it's sticking a little bit, that's not necessarily a good sign that these windows are supposed to last 40, 50, 60 years. What's that going to look like then? We might not be around to see that. Hopefully we are, but maybe not. So maybe your grandkids will say, "What's with these sticky windows? Who bought these kinds of things?" So that's one thing I'm looking at. Also the locking mechanism points, which is on the inside here. I see some plastic, just kind of some flayed out kind of metal. So that's one thing. Just only two different points for locking. And then the weather stripping itself feels pretty good. It's nice and soft, a little bit hard. What we want that weather stripping to do is when we close the window and lock it, we want it to compress ever so slightly. If it compresses too much, where this locking mechanism is really sticking, you really got to push it down. You basically just squeeze that weather stripping closed, and you've reduced that efficiency that the window is supposed to provide. So it's one thing that you're looking for. I mean, it's a very small thing. It's not a crazy issue, but just one thing when you're comparing, when you're looking at different windows like we're doing today. So looking at the inside of the jamb extension, you can see that it's screwed in, which means that it's not uniformly sitting inside that channel, so it needs to be fastened into place. It's another small defect that we can see with the window. It's not exactly perfect. When we have the window open, we're here in Calgary, get a lot of windy days. If you have the window open, it's one of people's biggest fears. If they've had it happen, they have a casement window open, and you can see that this one's got a lot of give to it. So if you had a strong enough wind, it could start to damage the window. It could blow it right off the hinge, and you got a whole problem. So looking at the inside arm, it's just one arm, and it's not really that thick a material. It is metal. It's not like it's made of plastic, but it's just one thing we're looking at. We're just having a full view at it. So it's got a little bit of a wiggle to it, and then that's what we're going to do. We're going to give it a close, and that's pretty much it for this one, for number 2. So again, another triple pane casement window, 3 lights. And looking at this one, this seems even a little bit cheaper quality. Similar hardware, but when I look at the panes of glass, the distance between the panes is quite narrow. It's very thin. It's not as a thick a spacing between the panes as number 2. So that's one thing to look at. Again, we can give it a close and feel how it's gonna. This one is even more shaky. Not something I would trust in a windstorm, having it open. You'd really want to make sure that these are closed at all times during the windy days, which feels like almost every day in Calgary. So not a good start. Again, looking at the inside, the inside of the window. I've seen this type of window a lot in a lot of lower entry builder grade homes. The screen is very hard to get out. It sticks against the locking mechanism itself, and really is quite flimsy. So it's not a deal breaker by any means, but it's another thing that I notice. This hardware is even a little bit more flimsy and not very reliable. These almost never last the length of the lifespan of the window. So we're going to close it up. Again, 2 locking points is all I see on this one. And then we can give it a close. A little bit of stick there. This one's a little bit better than number 2. So that's pretty much all I can see with number 3. Again, the one big issue with this one is the distance between those panes of glass. The quality doesn't seem as high, and very shiny. The vinyl's very shiny, so any sort of damage is going to be very visible once you shine some light on it. And again, we can see those weld points there. So this to me would seem like a very entry-level window that you'd see in a lot of more entry-level type homes. So most of the houses out there would have these types of windows. Okay, I have the inside of the window open here. Looking more into this locking mechanism, you can see how flimsy this bar is. Doesn't seem like this would last the lifespan of the window either. Also, the compression seal is very tight, and it doesn't compress much at all. This is built into the window frame, so if it was to get damaged in any sort of way, you might end up having to actually replace the whole window, because there's no way to get this out of here without just replacing the window. So Not something you'd really want to have to deal with, especially in the winter time or something like that. You don't really want to have people in your house replacing windows that you might have just installed. So not a good thing to see. Another thing I can see looking at this window, the weld points, quite sloppy. There's no imperfections with the weld quality. There's also no rubber gasket inside the panes of glass, which could affect the window itself, the sash, over time. There's nothing preventing any water and ice from getting inside the window over time, which could cause damage to the window. Living here in Calgary, we get all the seasons in one day, so you get a lot of expansion and contraction of the glass. Some of the more high quality windows have an actual rubber gasket inside the window panes itself, which is just another feature that helps to prevent any issues with the sash itself. A lot of these windows today, you can't really replace panes of glass. If something happens, you have to end up replacing the whole sash. So you really be trying to rely on the warranty of the window, and most of the time they might not be warranted for imperfections like that. So could leave you hanging high and dry in the future. So I think we'll close up number 3. Okay, so we have number 1. I'm going to move it into the picture here. Just looking at this window, just feeling it. It feels much more solid than 2 or 3 already. Looking at the actual sash itself, very solid. I'm a pretty strong guy, and I can't move that at all. So I would trust this much more during those strong winds. Just the actual lifespan of the window itself, this seems like it's going to last a lot more. The arm is doubled up, and this is a lot thicker gauge of metal. A lot more trustworthy, especially when you're going to be opening and closing it thousands and thousands of times over the lifespan of the window. The locking points, I see 3, and a lot more heavy duty components here. This will most likely hold up a lot tighter once I lock it, so we can give that a try. One more thing too, the crank is very thick. This feels very high end compared to all the other windows I see doing inspections. Again, we talked about how the handles are very flimsy. I break them off all the time. Not trying to break them, I'm just trying to close the window. Same thing with the locking mechanism. This just feels very smooth. So once we get it closed up, we can really test it. But again, it's a lot thicker. You would have to really rip on this, and I don't think you'd be able to do it with your hands to break this apart. So it seems like it would last a lot longer. Again, none of this is really that concerning on day 1. When the window guys come in, they put your windows in and they test it. Everything should be fine. You shouldn't be going, oh wow, look how great all this is. Everything should just be fine. But over time, like when we're opening and closing windows all the time, and it's cold out, it's hot out, the vinyl is expanding, the glass is expanding, contracting, that's when we start to see the quality deteriorate. So seeing something like this, it's an actual metal handle, that might actually last a lot longer, and you're not gonna be doing an inspection in 20 years and the home inspector breaks the window lock, and then the homeowner's trying to tell the inspector that he broke the window when it wasn't me, it was the window. So we'll close it up, and we'll see how it feels when we close it. Very smooth when it was closing and opening. And look at that, it just, almost no effort at all. Doesn't feel like I have to force it. Again, this is a brand new window. This is how it should feel. If it's sticking, that's not a good sign. So make sure you're doing that when you're testing windows, when you're going through houses that you're going to look to buy, or you're going into a showroom for a window company and you're testing the windows. They have them out in the showroom. That's why they're there for you to open and close. So put them to the test and see how they feel. But it should feel something like that. It should be almost effortless, almost one finger. My 4-year-old, my 1-year-old could do that. So that's good. You might want to edit that out because you don't really want kids opening windows. On the 2nd floor. Okay, so looking at the crank itself, again, it's a lot thicker. There's an actual pull release mechanism to help close it. It's just going to sit nice. Again, very heavy duty, really high end. If someone had a proficiency with windows, they would know that this is a really high quality window. Looking at this jamb extension, there's no screws in it other than on the side, so it seems to be sitting in the channel perfectly. Again, the vinyl seems like a lot better quality. We can have a look at the welds. These ones look like they're a lot more precise, and the vinyl itself is more of a flatter look. Again, we don't really see that as an issue when we're just brand new windows, but over time, those windows get hit with all kinds of things. Birds pecking at them, hailstones, kids throwing balls, anything like that. It can cause little imperfections in the window. So that window can go from looking brand new to, it might look 20 years old after a year just from getting beat up by the elements. So this flatter look just helps to hide those imperfections over time as the window gets its treatment. So, and then looking at the panes of glass, a lot thicker distance, a separation between the panes of glass itself. And we talked about that rubber gasket I like to see. We can see it inside here along the sash, which is great. Any water, ice is going to have a tougher time penetrating inside that window and causing damage over time. So, and we got the 3 points of contact for locking, very solid. Compared to the other 2, this is the one I would be going with if I was looking for new windows for my house. If I'm doing a house inspection, these are the type of windows I would be telling the buyer, these are really nice windows. These are windows that are going to last a long time, where the other 2 and 3, I'm not going to really say anything about the windows. I say they open and close, they're not broken. That's about it. There's really no selling feature to them. The weather stripping along the inside of the window, very soft and feels very like it's a higher quality. And it looks like you can actually remove this stripping. So if it became damaged for whatever reason, you'd be able to pop this out and have somebody put new weather stripping in without having to replace the whole window itself. And it's a lot softer. So when we close the window, it seems like a very minor thing, but when we close it, we want to make sure that it's not going to over compress and reduce that efficiency. And when we close the window, when it locks, it just locks perfectly. You can't feel it pulling on that weather stripping. So that's going to help allow that weather stripping to do what it's designed to do, which is to create a little bit of a separation between the elements, but seal up everything. Once you compress it too tight, you lose the efficiency. So you're going to get more air leakage. It's good to explain that this top locking point will help over time. Because these sashes become very heavy, especially with triple pane, they can sag. Those other 2 windows, it sags down. That's why it becomes harder to lock over time, because the window's pulling down on that mechanism, which is causing a cascading effect of issues that eventually lead to either seal failure or a broken pane of glass, or just the frame of it's cracking or failing or deteriorating over time. So that top locking point holds the window up, keeps it from sagging, which is where you're going to get a longer lifespan out of the window. The locking mechanism itself feels a lot more solid. I can't really move it around or shake it. It doesn't feel like it's loose, it feels very solid. And then the screen we talked about on I believe it was number 3. The screen, when you pull out, it gets stuck against the locking mechanism. So when we pull this one out, it just comes right out. It's not getting stuck on any mechanism. So, and it's very solid. So it looks really good to me. So looking at all 3 windows we've just gone over, window number 1 is definitely my pick if I was going to have to choose a window today. And it's definitely got the most benefits to be able to last over the years. And just a really solid window. Yeah, very impressed with number 1.